Have you ever met someone with such a fascinating life that you wanted nothing more than to sit down and listen to their entire story? Maybe you want to know about your grandparents and preserve your family history, or you're working with an archive to document a specific place or event and desire first-person perspectives. What you're interested in creating is an oral history. Hi, I'm Reese. I'm the digital storytelling intern with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the OSU Libraries. Creating your first oral history can seem intimidating, and there's a lot to consider before you can even begin recording interviews. But we're going to break it down and provide some great resources so you have everything you need. Before we begin, let's define oral history. According to the Oral History Association, oral history refers to both the interview process and the products that result from the recorded, spoken, or communicated interview. Oral historians may record interviews focused on the narrator's life, or topical interviews where the narrators share their knowledge of a specific historical subject, event, or community way of life. These interviews are then placed in a repository for future generations to access. To learn more, check out these videos linked in the description below. There are a lot of questions you need to be asking yourself before you begin recording, and generally there's no set order to answer them. In fact, some of the answers will be, "I don't know yet," and that's okay. But we'll break it down into 4 sections: defining your goals, organizing your team and tasks, and deciding equipment and budget. First is how to define your goals and set realistic expectations for your project. This must be your first step, as you need to have a clear idea of what you're trying to accomplish and why. It's a good idea to develop a mission statement that clearly states your goal. For example, here's our mission statement for our Married for Life oral history collection. The Oklahoma Married for Life Oral History Project is a series of interviews with Oklahoma couples who have been married for 70 years or more. The purpose of the project is to preserve the historical memories and legacies of Oklahoma's oldest living married couples. Once you figure that out, it's important to re-examine it at each step to make sure you're staying on target. Next, you'll want to ask yourself what the finished project looks like. Where and how are you storing your recordings? We recommend working with an archive, library, or museum to help preserve your interviews, so they can be maintained and easily accessed in the future. Here are some questions you should consider before contacting an archive. If you aren't working with one, then you'll need to maintain your recordings yourself and ensure they're accessible in a way your narrator anticipates. You should also consider any supplemental materials you'll want, such as transcriptions, indexes, or closed captions. Next, you'll want to think about the scope and timeline of your project. How many people are you planning on interviewing? Do you want to talk to an entire community or just a few people you already know? This will also impact how long it'll take you to finish your project. It can be helpful to break it down into weeks. There are 52 weeks in a year, and if you have 25 bi-weekly interviews, then you're already at a year, and that doesn't include the pre- and post-production processes. For an accurate timeline, you should include anything that needs to be done after you finish your interviews. This can include transcriptions or other supplemental materials, and if you're working with an archive, anything they require. Once you have a clear grasp on your goals, you can start thinking about how you want to organize your team. Depending on the scale of your project, your team might consist of multiple people, or it could just be you. Regardless, these are the tasks that need to be completed and how we recommend dividing the workload. First and foremost, it can be helpful to have someone responsible for managing the project, keeping track of the moving parts, communicating with your team, and ensuring everything gets done within your timeline. This person should also consider if your project needs an advisory board. You might not need one if you're planning on interviewing a small number of people that you already know, but if you're working with an archive, having one could be helpful. An advisory board can help you apply for grants, facilitate communication with interviewees, and provide more perspectives on your project. Once you determine if you need an advisory board, you can start thinking about how many people you'll need for these tasks. You'll need to find and contact the people you want to interview. This could take longer than expected if you don't already know your interviewees, and it's a good idea to budget time into building relationships and trust with the communities you're entering. You may even consider inviting community members or subject experts to join your team. Someone will need to schedule the interviews and any pre-interview meetings. You'll need someone who can organize your paperwork, as there are many forms that will need to be filled out. We'll link to some in the description, but some examples are consent forms, deeds of gift forms if you're donating interviews to an archive, and contact information for your interviewees. It's also important to create your organizational system for your interviews. This can include the file names, metadata, and creating multiple backups of your interviews. You'll need people to conduct the interview, and you might also need researchers if your interviewer is unfamiliar with your topic or community. Interview guidelines can help ensure consistency if you have multiple people conducting interviews. If you're planning on using recording equipment that you're unfamiliar with, we'd recommend tasking someone with managing tech. That brings us to our next topic, which is the equipment you'll need. There are tons of options to record audio and video, and we'll link some resources to help you decide. Ultimately, the best equipment is whatever is available to you. You should also ask your interviewee what they're most comfortable with. With that being said, there's a baseline recording quality that is recommended for storing and maintaining your interviews. For audio-only files, you should record at a WAV or B-WAV file or an uncompressed file at standard. There are more options for video files depending on your equipment, but we usually aim for an MP4, AVI, or MOV. We'll link to more information. If your team is unfamiliar with recording equipment, we'd recommend recording audio only. Video adds another recording format to the interview process, and it can be hard to manage everything if only one person is conducting the interview. Unless your project requires it, high-quality audio is almost always better than low-quality video. Finally, before you can begin assembling a team and conducting interviews, you need to decide your budget. Do you need funding for the project to support travel costs, purchase equipment, pay for personnel time, or compensate participants more broadly? There are opportunities to apply for grants or look locally for sponsorship opportunities to help fund your project. Check below for more information. Other considerations when planning your budget include renting a space to conduct interviews if you don't have access to a private, quiet location. You may also need to purchase or rent recording equipment or hire someone to help you record. If you're working with an archive, there may be additional obligations you need to fulfill, such as transcribing the recordings, building a website to host the interviews, or hiring someone to edit your interviews. Finally, you may need to consider compensating the people you interview. When determining whether your project might need to include additional support for participants, you will want to check in with your community advisors, or consider the possible hardships for someone invited to participate, like requiring childcare or missing hours of paid work. The Federal Office of Human Research Protections has important guidance related to this. You may also want to provide something other than monetary compensation if that fits better with your project goals, like participating in community cleanup events. Here are a few examples you can consider. Once you've completed your goals for the oral history interviewing phase of your project, don't forget to make sure all your material is either deposited with an archive or stored in a system clearly articulated with your project participants. If you have more questions, feel free to contact us. Don't forget to follow us on social media to hear more about our ongoing and upcoming projects. We wish you the best on recording your own oral histories.